Good evening. I'm Janine Wester, president of Empower Her of the Palm Beaches and a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Welcome to When We All Vote, Palm Beach County Voting Squad Candidates Forum. Tonight's forum, we will focus on the following races for the 2020 candidates for the Florida State Senate, District 25, Florida State Senate, District 29, Florida State House of Representatives, District 82, Florida State House of Representatives, District 88. When We All Vote is a nationally nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that's on a mission to increase participation in every election by changing the culture around voting, harnessing grassroots energy, and with the hopes of strategic partnership reaching every American. Michelle Obama, Tom Hanks, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Janelle Monáe, Chris Paul, Faith Hill, and Tim McGraw launched this campaign in 2018. The Palm Beach County Voting Squad is comprised of more than 35 local nonprofit organizations standing by the mission to increase participation in election and closing the voting gap of races and age. To ensure the citizens of Palm Beach County are ready, we are hosting several forums, and we have one forum left on this Thursday. Okay, enough of me rattling. Let's move on to the excitement. Mr. Studstill of Black Village Voices.
Good afternoon. Good evening. My name is Darren Studstill, and I represent Black Village Voice, which is a part of We All Vote Coalition of Palm Beach County Squad. Black Village Voice is a nonpartisan organization that was created to identify on the state and local level with our politicians accountability regarding important issues that affect the Black community. We advocate for activities that spur economic development in the Black community and to increase access to capital and Black businesses. It is an honor to introduce these fine attorneys and candidates here tonight. Our first attorney is Ms. Rosalyn Sir Baker Bonds. Ms. Baker Bonds is a partner in Searcy Dennis, Scroller, Barnhart, and Shipley, PA, and serves on his executive committee. In her 20-year career, she has successfully pursued justice for victims in personal injury, medical negligence, and product liability cases, achieving numerous multi-million-dollar verdicts and settlements, including her most recent $20 million verdict against tobacco giant R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company. She has been recognized with various news and legal professionals organizations for her professional and civic work. Ms. Baker Bond serves on the Florida Bar Board of Governors and is active in the Florida Bar's Trial Lawyers section, where she serves as a member on his executive council. She was the first African-American female to serve as president of the Palm Beach County Bar Association. She's also an active member of the Malcolm Cunningham Senior Bar Association, the National Bar Association, and the West Palm Beach chapter of the Links Incorporated. And she's a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. She resides in West Palm Beach with her husband, Edric E. Barnes, Esquire, and their 3 children. Thank you, Ms. Barnes, for your moderation and your service in our community. Next, I would like to introduce it was a good friend, Mr. Corey M. Smith. Corey M. Smith is the founder and president of the law office of Corey Smith, PA, located in West Palm Beach. Mr. Smith is a native of Riviera Beach and a member of Riviera Beach and is a member of the Palm Beach Lakes School North Shore inaugural class. After earning a BA in political science from Morehouse College, Mr. Smith began his career as an educator in Palm Beach County. Mr. Smith left teaching to pursue his dream of becoming a lawyer and enter into the University of Florida College of Law. After graduation, he returned to Palm Beach County and worked as an assistant public defender, followed by a position at the Palm Beach County School Board of Palm Beach County. Currently, Mr. Smith concentrates his private practice in criminal defense, education, and personal injury. He also serves as a special magistrate for the code enforcement and unsafe buildings for this great city of Riviera Beach. He has served as a governing board member at Inlet Grove Community High School in Riviera Beach and was recently reelected to the Thousand Oaks Community Development District. Mr. Smith is a member of Delta Delta Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and he proudly resides in Riviera Beach with his wife, and is the father of 4 children. In his spare time, he enjoys cycling, running, and 12.5 marathons he has completed, golf, basketball, political reading, and he is very devoted to his family and family time. I want to thank you both and welcome to our forum. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for tonight's Candidates Forum. The Florida Senate and the Florida House of Representatives together make up the Florida Legislature. The Florida Legislature is a part-time body, meeting only 60 days a year in regular sessions with the possibility of special sessions as needed. Tonight, we will hear from candidates for the 5 Florida Legislature races for Palm Beach County: House District 81, House District 82, House District 88, Senate District 25, and Senate District 29. These candidates will appear on the ballot for the August 18th primary election. The goal is to gain some insight into the candidates' qualifications and platforms. Note that all candidates were invited for each race.
Now, here are the rules for the forum tonight. For each race, each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. We will then move to a question and answer block. All candidates in a race will be asked the same pre-screening questions, and they can choose not to answer. If they do answer, each answer will be limited to 1 minute. After that, we will ask questions submitted by the audience. If you have a question, please submit it in the question and answer section on Zoom or in the Facebook comment section. At the conclusion of all questions, each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement. We will have a timer displayed for each candidate to review. Please note that we will have a facilitator monitoring the audio, so candidates, please be respectful and mindful of the time restrictions to avoid being muted.
We will now begin with the first group of candidates, which will consist of candidates for House District 81. Before introducing the candidates, I'll discuss some information about the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives is the lower house of the Florida State Legislature. Together with the Florida Senate, it forms the legislative branch of the Florida state government and works alongside the governor of Florida to create laws and establish our state's budget. It is composed of 120 members, each representing a district, who are elected every 2 years. The salary is $29,697 per year, plus per diem for subsistence and travel. For District 81, candidates in attendance tonight are Kelly Skidmore and Michael Weinstein. The Republican candidates in attendance are Salas Banyanis, Silmore Mora. House District 81 includes the following: Western Boynton Beach, Delray Beach, Boca Raton, and the cities of Belglade, South Bay, and Pahokee. We will now start with the opening statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes. We will begin with Ms. Kelly Skidmore.
We cannot hear you, Ms. Skidmore.
Ms. Skidmore, are you there? Okay, we don't have anything from Ms. Skidmore, so we're going to move on to the next candidate, who is Michael Weinstein, Democrat.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. All right, can you hear me? I just want to make sure. Give me a thumbs up.
We can hear you.
Perfect. All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Weinstein, and I am a lifelong Democrat, and I'm running for House District 81. As Corey said, it runs from West Boca through West Delray, through West Boynton, all the way up, and it veers left to Pahokee, South Bay, and Belglade. Today was my 4th trip up to Belglade. I was at the library today talking to some of my supporters. So who am I and what am I running for? Well, I'm a lifelong Democrat, as I mentioned. I am a proud Florida Gator, and I'm a graduate of Nova Southeastern University Law School. I was a former prosecutor where I spent 5 years as an assistant state attorney, and I've spent the past 17 years in private practice doing a variety of law, but mostly I'm board certified in criminal defense. I was appointed by the Florida Bar President to serve 3 terms on the Florida Criminal Procedure Rules Committee, where we help make the laws for the bar. I was also appointed to the Bar Professionalism Committee, and furthermore, I was appointed by United States Senator Bill Nelson to serve on his Military Academy Review Board. I made the decision with my wife, my lovely wife, that we got married in 2007, to run for House District 81 when I found out that it was going to become an open seat. I have a 5-point plan to improve our future. I believe that our first priority should be COVID-19 response and recovery. I believe we need to stand up to racial bigotry and prejudice. We need to expand Medicaid. We need to prioritize education and fight Governor DeSantis regarding his mask mandate and ask him to provide one. And we need to fight for better jobs and living wages, and we certainly need to scrap our current unemployment system that's not working. Having said that, I'm working very hard. I believe I'm going to win this nomination. I believe I'm going to win this race. I would ask everybody to look me up on Facebook and at weinsteinforstathouse.com. And I thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Weinstein. We're gonna circle back to Ms. Skidmore. I think we have her now. Ms. Skidmore, you have 2 minutes to make your opening statement. You have to unmute. We can't hear you. We can see you, but we can't hear you, Ms. Skidmore. We still can't hear you. Okay, so we'll double back again, Ms. Skidmore. I promise we'll give you a chance to get your 2-minute opening statement in. We're going to move on to Mr. Salas Banyanis. Did I pronounce that correctly?
It's pretty close.
Okay, please.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Dr. Salas Banyonis, and I'm a board certified physician. I hold multiple board certifications, but then I'm also a small business owner in the Western communities of Palm Beach County. I'm also a husband, a father. I'm also a veteran, as well as a Christian. I'm running for the House District 81 for the Florida State of Representatives, because now is the time really for citizens to be standing up. That's one of the things that I really feel that we need to make it a little bit easier for everyday common citizens to step up and run for public office. I think that there's quite a few obstacles that stand in the way for everyday citizens to do that. And I think we need to get basically back to our roots. I'm not a politician. I want to stand up for everyday citizens. So I really don't have any special interests involved in this. Now is the time for common sense, practical solutions, not for, political talking points and narratives. I personally bring a level of expertise. I'm the only candidate that can provide this given the current pandemic. And this is really pretty much overwhelming the entire country as well as even the world. I bring a level of expertise that, the other candidates can't bring to the table. Obviously, my focus is going to be on resolving the pandemic and getting everybody back to work. But I also believe in restoring law and order. And then more locally and more specifically to our district, resolving the issues related to the water quality, as well as the problems that we've had from Lake Okeechobee and getting those discharges that have been causing all of the various algae blooms. So these are some of the few things that I want to focus on. Most specifically, it's a 2-year position, and we're in there for 60 days. So I don't want to tell you I'm going to sit here and try to solve the entire problems of all the world, because we can't. But what we can do is we can get the immediate problems that face us, and we have to address those with common sense practical solutions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Banyonis, or Dr. Banyonis. We're going to go to Mr. Silmo Mora. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Silmo Mora. I'm running for State Representative, District 81. I'm a native of Brazil. I've been to the U.S. We moved back to the U.S. Back in about 30 years ago. We moved to the U.S. We've been living in Boca Raton area for about a little over 25 years. I am a realtor. I am a father. I'm a grandfather. I got 3 kids. One of them just finished pre-med at FIU. My other kid is finishing up this year civil engineering at FAU right here in Boca. And my daughter is married, gave us 2 billion, which is the joy of our life and our family. I'm a minister with the Assemblies of God, and I'm not a politician at all. So it's not going to be a political talk here from my end. Now, I'm just an ordinary citizen that's going to continue to do what I'm doing once elected. The main reason I'm running in this race is for basically 3 things: education, better education for our kids. Our kids will be our future governors, representatives, president. So secondly is the health insurance, affordable prescription, and a small business. As a realtor, I'm a small business owner, and we are the one that moves the economy. So the state got to look at us in a different way. I'm here to ask for your vote, and I'm here for you. I'm asking you to check on my website, silmomora.com, or elect Silmo Mora. And then my platform is there. But I believe the real platform comes from the communities, because you know what you need, not as politicians or representatives. We got to go back. And one of the things that I keep saying, talking to my people when I talk to them, once elected, I'm going to go back to the streets, to your homes, to the county, with one question: what can I do to make it better? Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. We're going to try one more time to double back or triple back to Ms. Skidmore. Ms. Skidmore, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine and well. You got 2 minutes.
Well, thank you so much for your patience, and thank you, everyone. I'm sorry for all of that. My name's Kelly Skidmore. I'm running for the House of Representatives in District 81. I'm a semi-native. I grew up in South Florida in Deerfield Beach. My family moved there in 1972. I lived in Boca Raton since 1984. I had a career in real estate, and then I had a career in as a legislative aide before I ran for office in 2006 and served until 2010. I am currently a public relations specialist for the Marine Industries Association of South Florida. We're a marine trade association of small businesses like welders and painters and carpentry. So we represent about 142,000 jobs in South Florida. I'm running for the Florida House because I believe that my experience as both a legislative aide and a former member of the House, will give the people of District 81 the representation that they deserve heading into this very difficult upcoming legislative session, where we're going to be dealing with how we're going to continue to handle COVID-19, how we're going to handle our recovery, and what we're going to do about the budget. Having served during the time of the Great Recession, I feel that my experience, my qualifications will really serve the district residents well, and that I will be able to represent their best interests. I would like to work on access to healthcare. I would also like to work on economic development, diversification, specifically in regard to the blue economy, which is something that I've been working on through the Marine Research Hub. And I'd also like to have a statewide comprehensive sea level rise compact that we can have around the state of Florida. We have it in South Florida, but we need a statewide compact. So that's what the things that I'd like to work on for District 81.
Thank you, candidates, for your opening statements. Let's get to the questions. The same question will be asked of all candidates. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. Please wait for the timer before you begin. Question 1 will be addressed to Michael Weinstein first. In 2020, the ACLU released a research report entitled "A Tale of Two Countries: Racially Targeted Arrests in the Era of Marijuana Reform." It details marijuana arrests from 2010 to 2018 and examines racial disparities at the national, state, and county levels. The report found that while more than 6 million arrests occurred between 2010 and 2018, Black people are still more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than white people in every state, including those that have legalized marijuana. If elected, will you champion legislation to decriminalize the recreational use of marijuana in Florida? You have 60 seconds to respond.
I believe that I'm the absolute perfect person of the 4 candidates to answer this question. Let's talk about my background. First, let me answer the question. The answer is yes, I would support that legislation. Now, let me tell you why. I'm a Florida Bar board certified criminal trial lawyer. I spent 5 years as an assistant state attorney, but more importantly, I've spent 17 years as a criminal trial lawyer. I have represented literally hundreds of young African-American men who have been charged with crimes. I have defended their constitutional rights in court all up and down South Florida, from Miami, Broward, and Palm Beach County. And it's absolutely true that I think that there is a racial disparity in these arrests. So what is my plan? I have a 3-part plan to work on it. I believe that I'm the perfect person to be a bridge between criminal justice, between the law enforcement and the citizens. Number 1, we should have mandatory de-escalation training. Number 2, we should work on officers wearing their blues and greens instead of fatigues. And last but not least, I believe in citizen review boards. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Banyanis, you're next.
Yeah, so I would not support the decriminalization of marijuana. And the main reason is that medical studies have actually shown that the frontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that actually makes executive decisions. So that's why, as we age, people actually make better decisions as adults than they do when they're younger. That's just a basic fact. So what ends up happening is, if we decriminalize it and we have younger people using marijuana more and more frequently, we're actually going to affect their brain development, and they're going to end up making poorer choices as we go on, as they further develop. So I do not support legalizing marijuana. So I'll be very frank about that. In terms of working with the community and restoring law and order and safety in the communities, I think that we have to form police and community partnerships. We have to start getting back to recruiting from the communities where these people live, because individuals understand their communities the best. And I think that that's one of the keys to actually working effectively and partnering with communities and with police so that we can restore safety, because everybody wants safety in their community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banyanis. Mr. Mora, you're next.
Thank you. As a minister and a chaplain, I've been working in this past 20 years through my church, through the community, with people that use marijuana and they got high. Now, they made some decisions that I'm very sure if they had not used it, they wouldn't make those decisions. And some decisions that they're going to carry for the rest of their lives. Based on that, no, I will not support it. Now, everything God created has a plan from God. If it's used as a medication to help people to heal their wounds or their health, that's something else. But recreational, no. Also, a 16-year-old, a 13-year-old, 18-year-old, even a 20-year-old, they have not made their main decisions yet in life. And when they are high, of course, they're not thinking correctly. And I have seen it. I have follow up with teenagers that have had these problems. And based on that, my best experience, my answer is no. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. And Ms. Skidmore.
Yes, I definitely support the decriminalization of recreational marijuana use. I think the war on drugs was unfounded. I think that it was a vehicle in which hundreds of thousands of Black and brown people were incarcerated for nominal amounts of drugs. I don't think that it's a gateway drug. I think that it's a gateway to jail for a certain percentage of the population that have been targeted. I think that the medical use of marijuana has been proven. I am someone who has a chronic pain disease. I don't use it, but I certainly would not suggest that if it helps someone that they should not be allowed to. For parents who have children with seizures, have epilepsy, or any other kind of condition where medical marijuana is of use, if it's good enough for them, then we need to look at across the board. We need to decriminalize it, but we also need to retroactively go back and look at the sentences of people who have been sitting in jail and in prison for small amounts of recreational marijuana, and we need to commute those sentences.
Thank you, Ms. Skidmore. And thank you, panel. Thank you, candidates, for your answers. Question 2 will be addressed first to Mr. Salas Banyonis. The COVID-19 pandemic has revealed deep-seated inequities in healthcare for communities of color and amplified social and economic factors that contribute to poor health outcomes. This has been compounded with the tragic deaths of Black men and women whose lives have been cut short by police and vigilantes. The foregoing has weighed on the mental health of Black Americans. Florida ranks near the bottom among states in per capita spending on mental health. What would be your approach towards increasing appropriations for mental health? You have 60 seconds to respond.
Increasing appropriations for mental health, I think, goes hand in hand with restoring law and order and safety in the communities. As it specifically relates to COVID-19, I think that has to be addressed from both the obesity and diabetes perspective, as the diabetes and obesity with this particular virus seem to be particularly vulnerable. So that's a separate issue that would need to be dealt with. In terms of the mental aspect, I think that there are more and more services that need to be available. As a state, we have to help to provide those services to the communities. I know, in the hospitals, it's actually very difficult sometimes to have even psychologists available, much less a psychiatrist. So when people are hospitalized, it's often difficult to have somebody on staff that's able to provide those services. But ideally, the state should help to prep and provide the funding for those. A lot of times the police bring people to the hospital. I think we need to have them there.
Time is up. Thank you. Mr. Mora.
Yes. We are living in a situation, all of us, where there is lots to do and little money. And of course, nobody was expecting what happened to the whole world this year. Now, I believe the best attack is a defense. Now, I believe we have to work together with the community, law enforcement, the health insurance to try to solve this. Now, the community, the government, actually, after all of this has happened to us this year, we don't have much money left there. We're going to be working on a very, very tight budget to supply the mental health and all of this that's going on in our days. However, I believe if we work a budget according to the communities, and to the one that most need it, we can get to a point where everybody will be helped, and we can develop and get to the end of this.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Skidmore, you're next.
Thank you. I'm waiting for the clock. So we know that for decades, the Department of Health, starting in Tallahassee, has been defunded in a number of ways. And those funds trickle down to our local departments of health, and they are left without the resources available to help to deal with mental health in the community. Unfortunately, one of the biggest providers of mental health services is the prisons. And again, that is a situation that is untenable. We don't have the social services, we don't have the social workers that we need in place, working hand in hand, working in tandem with our police officers. But mental health is something that it needs to be a priority when we head back. Healthcare and education are our biggest pots of money in the legislature, and we know that those are going to be targeted for more and more cuts. So we have to have people there who understand the budget and can protect those resources that we need in our community, such as the meager ones that we have for mental health services.
Thank you, Ms. Skidmore. Mr. Weinstein.
Corey, this is the very first bill that I want to pass when I get to Tallahassee. I've thought about this issue for years. I deal with it in the court system every single week. And it's as follows. Under Chapter 921 of the Florida statutes, which is the downward departure statute, judges do not have a dual diagnosis exception to allow someone to be treated for mental health illness in lieu of incarceration. So I've thought about what kind of bill can we pass that would allow judges to give a downward departure, meaning that someone does not have to go to jail. They can depart downward from the guidelines and give them a non-incarcerative sentence. I want to add something to that statute that says as follows. If you have been diagnosed with dual diagnosis and a court makes that finding, the judge can then grant a downward departure, and you can then have your health insurance pay for mental health treatment. And that is a pragmatic solution that will help mass incarceration. It is the very first bill that I want to pass. I want to amend Chapter 921. I want to make sure that young men and women who have been diagnosed with dual diagnosis, that's both mental health illness and drug use, have another option to get treatment that will cost us nothing.
Thank you. Question 3 will be addressed to Silmo Mora first. If elected, what is your plan to increase Black and minority business participation with state contracts? Remember, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you very much. There you go. Thank you very much. Yes. I've been talking to a lot of small businesses like me, owners throughout Palm Beach, especially the minority, Brazilians, Latinos, Haitians, and also the African Americans. And what I asked them, what can I do as a legislator to help on their business? One of the things I would say about 90% of them told me was to lower tax. And I believe we can lower tax to make they produce more, and it's a kind of incentive for them to grow more and produce more. So one of the things that I'm gonna do, I'll be working to lower their small business tax, because we are the ones, we are a small business. We are the one that moves the economy, that makes it happen. And I've been talking to a bunch of them throughout the county, throughout the 81 on this, including our brothers and sisters from the African community, African-American community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly Skidmore, you're up next.
Well, I think that there have been some attempts in the past to create opportunities for minority, including women-owned businesses, but that there are a lot of ways to skirt around those, a lot of loopholes that allow larger corporations to come in, sweep in, and sort of take those contracts. I think higher scrutiny of those contracts is necessary. I think there's opportunity that is available Heading into this next year, though, we are going to be in an economic recovery. There are some things that we need to do for small businesses, such as eliminating the commercial real estate sales tax, which has been an unfair burden on small businesses, and something that we can do across the board to help our small businesses recover and move forward. I do think that we do have to have a higher scrutiny on the contracts and the laws and the rules and regulations that we have in place already for those protections.
Thank you. Mr. Weinstein.
So when I decided to run, I went on a listening tour of the entire district. I started out with leaders in Boca Raton, went to Delray, Boynton, Lake Worth, and then I went over to the Glades. As I said, I was in the Glades today. There's two issues that come up when I go to the Glades in the African-American community. Number one, I've already discussed, which is social justice and criminal justice reform. But the second issue is housing. So regarding housing, how do you ensure that there are developers who are willing to build in the African-American portion of District 81? So what I did when I heard about housing is I started calling some of the biggest developers in Palm Beach County. They said to me that the reason that they're not going in and building is because there's not enough public-private partnerships in order to build the type of row housing that is needed in Belglade, Pahokee, and South Bay. So what is a legislator you can do? You can encourage more tax incentives to the developers who are willing to build in minority communities. And if they are willing to build in minority communities, that will allow for more jobs because they will be working in those minority districts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Banyanis.
Yes, I think that there's already quite a few laws on the books that do support, minority businesses having an opportunity to participate in state contracts. I think that those rules need to actually just be reinforced. A lot of times, I think that some of these are sort of sidestepped and with cronyism. So I think that a lot of the rules that are already in place need to really just be enforced. And then additionally, I also agree, as a Republican, as a conservative, anything we can do to put more money in the pockets of the actual small business owners, that's then going to spread out to the community. So I agree that we need to lower these small business taxes, take a look at other taxes that small businesses have to address that they don't have those large write-offs that the large corporations do. So lowering the business tax and pushing that out into the community so that we can develop further within every community.
Thank you. We'll now take any questions from the audience. Tech team, are there any audience questions? No? Okay, I have an additional one that I'm going to ask. The Florida legislature is finding itself under pressure to deal with major environmental issues, from cleaning up waterways to helping communities deal with rising sea levels. Governor DeSantis is proposing $4 billion to tackle a number of issues. The plan includes hundreds of millions of dollars for the Everglades alone, plus money to target algae blooms like blue-green algae and red tide in other areas. And we're all familiar with that. What specific policies would you promote to address climate change, and what strategies would you use to navigate this political climate? And we started with, I think, Mr. Weinstein, you're up first now.
That's fine. Thank you. So I believe that this district, as everybody knows, is very heavily agricultural. And there's three main agriculture entities that work in this district. There's Florida Crystal, there's US Sugar, and there's the co-op. I believe that we need to work with the agricultural community in order to make sure that they are as carbon neutral as possible. Let me give you some examples. Number one, the sugarcane stalk needs to be utilized to be making things such as disposable plates and dishes. Number two, we need to ensure that the crop rotation includes corn and rice and other staple crops when they do when they rotate it with the sugarcane. Number three, we have to be cognizant of the fact that there is runoff. However, runoff has been around, as far as I understand, over 100 years. So the algae bloom is something that it's going to take a very, very, very long time to clean up. And I would support the governor in his efforts in order to clean up the environment, but I would also work with the agriculture industry to make sure that they're carbon neutral.
Thank you. Mr. Banyanis, you're next.
Yes. So, a lot of the Florida economy depends on our waterways. And just bottom line is we have to be better stewards of it. So I want to work with not only local universities as well as innovators to develop better mediation strategies that's going to be able to filter out those pollutants and the fertilization from the runoff. Additionally, Florida is one of the largest growing areas. We need to be better in terms of developing the infrastructure as we continue to expand and develop. And we need to make sure that all of the infrastructure is taking our environment into account. And then lastly, the construction delays that have been going on in terms of allowing areas to run off for filtration for the discharges, those have just been bogged down. We've been hearing about those for the last 10 years. And we need to get to the bottom of what's holding those up and get those things moving and get them finished so that we can actually take care of this water problem so that we're not having these algae blooms, every time we have a discharge.
Thank you. Mr. Mora.
Thank you. I was waiting for I'm waiting for the clock there, but I'm gonna go ahead and start. Thank you very much. Yes, I definitely would work with Governor DeSantis on that. Well, when you say District 81, if you know our area, that's basically what it is. Now, I believe building is a great thing and we should build, but there is too many buildings going around and we're forgetting about the green, the preservation, to preserve a little more. And that's one of the things that I'll try to do is this. We have to plant more. We need more green out there because that purifies the air and that saves water as well and helps the climate. Now, we need more, we need to preserve nature, and that's basically one of the things that I'll be doing there when I get to Tallahassee once elected. Definitely I'll support, it doesn't matter any party that the ideas like this could be coming from. The main thing is we have people there that they need that we need water, we need clean water, cleaner air, and definitely I'm going to fight to preserve those. Thank you.
And thank you. And Ms. Skidmore.
Thank you so much for the question, Corey. So I mentioned earlier the blue economy, and that's something that I have a passion for. I've worked with the Marine Research Hub, which is an organization that collaborates 4 universities that have oceanographic institutes in South Florida and the 3 economic development organizations, which also partnered with an organization called Ocean Exchange that funds startup businesses. This is where we can diversify our economy and save our waterways. When you look at the state of Florida and you see the Gulf on one side, the Atlantic on the other, Lake Okeechobee, the Everglades, our estuaries and springs, we should be leading the charge in this country on the blue economy. And sadly, we haven't been. We have a chief science officer in the state of Florida, and we have a chief resiliency office in the state of Florida. The governor needs to fill those positions. We need to come up with a statewide resiliency plan so that we're building to those standards across the state, and we need to diversify our economy so that we are looking at the tourism component of things as well as the conservation.
Thank you, Ms. Skidmore. We have a question from the audience. And this is a good question in my opinion. How do you all propose to address years, and I would even say decades, of chronic disinvestment in our public schools? We're going to start with Mr. Mora. You go first.
Thank you very much. Great question. Great question. I believe education is everything, because if we educate our kids, as I said before, they're going to be our leaders. Now, if you don't prepare the leadership of this country, of our community, of District 81, of Palm Beach County, of the state of Florida, what are you going to have 20, 30 years from today? Now, I think we have to help our teachers. If a teacher wants to get a master's degree or PhD, to somehow help them to get that degree. Because if we have better teachers, of course, they're going to teach better to the kids. They're going to have better kids, and also help our kids to get to finish high school, to get into college, help them in, financially speaking, you know. And I know that it has got to be some money out there that we can direct to education. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Banyonis.
Yes, I think that, you know, education, absolutely. Children are the future. So it does start with the teacher. The number one thing I think we all have to agree on is that we have to hire qualified teachers. It doesn't matter whether it's private schools, charter schools, public schools. We have to have a basic competency level that meets the basic minimum standards. We have to have qualified teachers in the school. That's the first thing. Next, we have to really emphasize, what is the world looking at? And the world is looking at STEM courses. So that's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we have to emphasize these courses for all schools. I also think that we have to emphasize civics and history and appreciation for what our country has gone through, and so that we can overcome the challenges of the future. Additionally, I think we have to pay teachers better. And I think that students really, the way that they perform kind of is reflective of how those teachers have done. So I think that, you know, if we can incentivize teachers with a pay for performance program for how their children are doing, I think that that will additionally incentivize public schools. And whether it's school choice or voucher programs or any of these things, what we have to do is we have to allow those best systems in place to move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Weinstein.
So as a proud parent of a 9-year-old who goes to the Palm Beach County public school system, there's two things that I've noticed while she's been in public education. Number one, class size is very important. If you keep those class sizes to a minimum level, to a maximum level, excuse me, I think that kids are better educated. Number two, and to answer Ms. Williams' question directly, how do you combat chronic disinvestment? I agree that we have to pay our teachers absolutely a minimum living wage. And how do we do that? We have to make sure that they make enough money in order to be able to live. And that way you'll be able to recruit the best possible teachers. I want to use the rest of my 30 seconds to talk about as follows. Right now, we're making a decision to whether we need to send our kids back to school. And I would absolutely oppose any government plan that would send our kids back to school unless and until the health experts said it is absolutely positively safe for the children to go back to school. I support a public mask mandate, and I support keeping our kids at home until they are absolutely safe. Thank you.
Okay, and if you all can see the next question from the public, trust is essential.
Wait.
I'm sorry, Ms. Skidmore, please accept my apologies. I skipped you.
No problem.
You weren't going to answer that question.
Thank you so much. You are right. It has been a strategic plan to defund public schools. So we have charter schools, we have corporate scholarships. And what corporate scholarships are, for anybody who may not know, is that corporations that owe income tax to the state of Florida get to decide where that money goes. It goes into a pot of money, then that gets paid to private and parochial schools. It is diverted from our public schools. Charter school funding also diverted from our traditional public schools. There is a place for charter schools in this system, but it is not and should not be in direct competition to our public schools. And these schools, any schools that take tax dollars, should be held to the same standards. They should not go to schools that have bigotry or hatred at their core. And we need to realign and reprioritize the funding that we do have in our $90 billion budget every year.
Thank you. I've been directed by the moderators to end the audience questions and move directly to closing. So we're going to have the closing statements of each of the candidates. Each candidate has 1 minute. We'll start with the Democratic candidates, Michael Weinstein, followed by Kelly Skidmore. Mr. Weinstein, take it away.
All right, so I want to answer Ms. Williams' question real quick, and that is trust is essential to build effective community partnerships. How would you address the dearth of trust between law enforcement and communities of color? I have watched for over 20 years that we have tried to combat racism from the outside in instead of the inside out. I watched the police officer put his knee to the neck of George Floyd and effectively murder him. And what we'll do is we will prosecute the offender as opposed to dealing with the problem from the inside. And the way to deal with that problem from the inside is by a statute that says that police officers must have mandatory de-escalation training. And that is one of the things that I would support if I got to Tallahassee. So I wanted to answer that question. Number two, who am I? I was raised in a strong Democratic family. My grandfather was Speaker of the New York State Assembly. He was the majority leader of the New York Democratic Party in Queens County. My father served in the state legislature and was a Democratic minority leader. And my brother was a two-time Obama appointee. I was looking for an opportunity to serve, and I think this is the perfect fit for me, and I would ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weinstein, and apologize if I keep mispronouncing your name. Ms. Skidmore, you have 1 minute.
Well, thank you so much. Great questions this evening. This has been a really well done forum, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with all of you. I think the questions brought out not only our knowledge and experience, but some of our personality as well. I know that my 4 years in the legislature will serve me well heading back come November. I have the trust and endorsement of over 30 different elected officials and organizations who have vetted the candidates in this race. I hope and I would love to earn the vote and support of everyone in District 81. Experience is going to matter as we head back into this very difficult session. And I believe that I'm the best candidate to serve the district. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity to be a public servant once again.
Thank you, Ms. Skidmore and Mr. Weinstein. Next, we will have the closing statements from the Republican candidates, Mr. Salas Banyanis, followed by Mr. Silmo Mora. So, Mr. Banyanis, take it away.
All right, thank you. I am a board certified physician and I hold multiple board certifications. I have worked as a medical expert for the Florida Department of Health. I'm the only candidate that can provide a level of understanding with the current crisis that can have an immediate impact on not only our community, but as well as on our state, and can bring that expertise and knowledge to the Florida legislature. We have serious problems that need practical solutions, not professional politicians. As a physician, we take an oath to protect and serve the public health. And a vote for me is a guarantee that you will have a voice in government that will always be working for the public good. And I ask for your vote August 18th as well as November 3rd. I look forward to resolving this current crisis as well as future crises. I ask that you check out Facebook as well as my Facebook page, as well as salasbanyanis.com for additional information. Please get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banyanis. Mr. Mora, you get to bring us home.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you very much for this time. And I want to ask you respectfully for your vote, for your trust. And I believe when you vote on somebody, you trust in that person. And one of the things that I'm telling my community is this: I'm going to be your voice in Tallahassee. You have on my webpage, you have on my Facebook as well, my Instagram and Twitter, you have my address, you know where I live. You have my cell number, you have my work number, you know where you work. And I'm walking in your community. And at the end of the day, there is no Republicans, there is no Democrat, there is no independents. At the end of the day, there is a representative in Tallahassee, and there are people out here, and they gotta come to the level of the people, not a political level, to understand what the people say and to help the communities to make it better. I thank you very much. And I'm based on three things. I'm based on God. We got to bring God back, God to our society, to our families. Love our families and love this great country. God bless you. And don't forget, the Lord Jesus Christ cares about you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. Thank you to all the candidates. I'm now going to turn it over to Attorney Saya Baker Barnes.
Thank you, Corey. We invited all candidates from District 82 to participate, but they either declined to participate or did not confirm. As such, we will now move on to District 88. The district consists of cities in eastern central Palm Beach County, include Lake Riviera Beach, West Palm Beach, south to Delray Beach. The population of the district is 156,720. All candidates in this race are Democrats. The candidates in attendance tonight are Representative Al Jaquette. I believe he was invited, and I'm not sure if he's appeared yet, but he was invited. Commissioner Omari Hardy, Miss Sienna Asta, and Mr. Cedric Thomas. We will now start with the opening statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes, and we will begin with Representative Jaquette. Is he present? All right. I do not see that Mr. Jaquette is present, so we will continue going forward and we'll move on to the next one, which is Commissioner Omari Hardy. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Commissioner Omari Hardy. And before I say anything else, I just want to thank the folks who put this on. I have a special appreciation for what's happening tonight. And that's not me, the city commissioner talking, that's me, the educator talking. I started my career in education teaching civics at Roosevelt Middle, right in the heart of District 88. And when you teach your kids about civics and about the democratic process and about the importance of getting involved and staying informed, you hope that when they come of age, they do precisely what it is that we're doing right here and precisely what it is that the folks who put this event together are doing. And so, everyone here represents in some way, a dream come true for one of their teachers. And so I appreciate that. I'm running for Florida House District 88 because I believe that District 88 needs a strong advocate in Tallahassee and also a present representative here in the district. And as you noted, Representative Jaquette, the incumbent, is not here, just as very often he's not to be found in the halls of the Capitol in Tallahassee, and just as he is very often not found here in the community. And I believe that we could do better. And that's not just me talking, but that's folks in the district who I've spoken with, elected officials in the district who have endorsed my campaign. They wanted a better choice in this election. And so I filed to run because I think we need someone who's going to fight the good fight for working class families, for public school students, for women who saw their constitutional right to choose be threatened this past legislative session. We need someone who's going to go up there and do the people's work. And it is for that reason that I am running for Florida House District 88. So I look forward to the questions to come. And I appreciate everyone who helped put this together.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hardy. Next, we will have Ms. Asta with her opening statement. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sienna Asta, and I'm an attorney here in Palm Beach County. Let me tell you why I decided to run for State House. I know that if you want to change the world, you need to be the change. As a local attorney, I've been touched by the stories of so many of our neighbors who find themselves in despair, mistreated by a system and a society that discards far too many people. And these neighbors, they have stories that need to be told, and they need to be represented in the halls of government. That is why I'm stepping up to run for State House. We cannot wait around for other people to fix the problems that we ourselves are disgusted by. In that regard, my opponent isn't doing anything to fix the problem. In fact, in many ways, he is contributing to the problem. He voted against his fellow Democrats and joined Republicans in approving a bill limiting abortion rights. He has not maintained a constituent office in our district while serving as our state representative. He misses key votes in the legislature. And on top of all of this, he's impossible to reach. He's impossible to find. Where is he tonight? And so when it comes to helping our neighbors, he's not there. This is simply unacceptable. I'm Sienna Asta, and I'm running for State House for District 88. As a litigator, I have experience in advocating for my clients and fighting for their rights. And I'll use that same skill set in advocating for and fighting for our residents here in District 88. I have experience in negotiating and getting the best results possible.
Your 2 minutes are up. I do not see the timer. I
I didn't
apologize,
get
but
a
why don't you?
timer. Yeah, I didn't have a timer the whole time, but
Okay, just
yeah,
finish
I'll
up.
just wrap up.
We'll
Yeah.
go to Ms.
So yeah, without a timer, that helps, right? But as I was saying, I'm going to use that same experience that I've got in negotiating and getting the best results for my clients to work in Tallahassee to create, debate, and vote on legislation that either makes new laws or modifies the existing ones that are in the best interest of our people here in District 88.
Thank you very much, Ms. Oscar. Next, we will have Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone that is here, and thank you for putting on this particular candidates forum. My name is Cedric Thomas, and I am a lifelong resident of Riviera Beach. I've served several years on the city council in Riviera Beach, and I've also served on our police department in Riviera Beach as well for many years. I'm running in this race simply because I believe that it's been underserved. I would like to see different things happen in this particular district. It's gerrymandered for a reason, but it also doesn't get the attention that it needs. I like to see more infrastructure projects. I want to work for, better community involvement, broadband access, have a concentration on our youth. Teacher pay, that's a buzzword, but it does need to be better and consistent all across the state so that we have more teachers coming in to the field versus going out. Maybe it's time to look at the teacher exam and decide whether we still need that or not. Is it valid for being able to have a job in our educational system? Also like to look at criminal justice. As I told you, I have had a career in law enforcement, and at this particular time and period in our history, I tend to have a better understanding of what's going on, seeing that I've been on both sides of this particular police community atmosphere that we have here. I believe I can help with that. I believe that we can do legislative things to better assist in that. I also want to make sure that this just doesn't become a revolving door in terms of you get one person this term, another person that term. I like to see some consistency and working with the upper house and the Senate as well to make sure that we can do and add some value to this particular district. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas. We will now start the questions section. The same question will be asked of all candidates. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. Please wait for the timer to begin before you begin your response. Question 1 will be addressed to Commissioner Omari Hardy first. The Florida State Senate and House of Representatives are controlled by Republican members. What have you done, or what is your plan, if elected, to work with members across the aisle to advocate for your constituents without jeopardizing your morals? You have 60 seconds to respond.
That's a good question. And that's a tough question. Obviously, as a Democrat, I believe in public schools. I believe in a woman's constitutional right to choose. I believe that people who go to work should earn and who do an honest day's work should earn an honest day's wage. And I think there are, and I also believe that corporations should pay taxes, especially the large ones here in the state of Florida. But unfortunately, there are some key disagreements with folks on the other side of the aisle. And so what you try to do is you try to find niche areas that are outside of the partisan space, outside of the issues and subjects on which we know that the disagreements between Republicans and Democrats go very deep. And you try to legislate in that area. I think a fantastic model for that, one here in Palm Beach County and one outside of Palm Beach County, would be Representative David Silvers, who has passed legislation every single year pertaining to mental health and, for example, the rights of children who are Baker Acted. And another one would be Chevron Jones, who passed a bill last year, the Dignity for Incarcerated Women Act, to ensure that women can have access to hygiene products while they're incarcerated. So those are nonpartisan things that I think are very passable in the legislature, and I hope to model my career after those gentlemen.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Hardy. Next, we'll have Ms. Asta. You have 1 minute to respond.
Yes, and can you repeat the question?
I sure can. The question is, What have you done, or what is your plan if elected, to work with members across the aisle to advocate for your constituents without jeopardizing your morals?
Okay, now I see the timer. Thank you. I think that's a great question. I think this is a very important issue. The best answer I can say here is that I'm a lawyer. This is my job. My job is to argue, and my job is to negotiate. And so when it comes to reaching across the aisle and getting a law negotiated, or getting something negotiated for our people here in District 88, I'm a master at that. I'm number one at doing that. I think it's important to also remember, though, that it is about putting up a fight when a fight is needed and not just negotiating. And I'm there to do that for the people.
Thank you very much, Ms. Asta. Appreciate your response. We will next have a response by Mr. Thomas. You will have 60 seconds.
Okay, I don't quite see the timer, but I'm gonna go ahead and start.
I'm going to start in just a second. Just give it one moment.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. What have I done this far? I have passed legislation on the City of Riviera Beach City Council. One being the one for the enlarging the family home child daycares, where we increased that from the 6 to the 12 as long as they added an additional employee. That allowed them to double their pay without having to invest more in infrastructure. That's one of the things that we did. As far as going to the legislature and compromising myself, I just wouldn't do that. I'm sure enough in myself and in my convictions to advocate for what the district needs. In my decision-making matrix, never is it going to be a question of my morals about it, because people are first. And if the district is getting served properly, which they would be up under me.
Okay,
then
Thomas, your time has expired, so we're going to move to the next question. We appreciate your response, okay? All right, and I understand that Representative Jaquette has now joined us, so we'll allow him to answer the next question along with everyone else in the group. Question 2, and this question will be addressed to Ms. Sienna Asta first. Palm Beach County is rated among the worst for affordable housing in the country, and exacerbated by a low average wage. Governor DeSantis has proposed adding $387 million for the Sadowski Fund affordable housing, which has been consistently rated to prop up state budgets. House Bill 381 died in the 2020 legislative session, which would exempt the State Housing Trust Fund and Local Government Housing Trust Fund from the provision authorizing the legislature to transfer unappropriated cash balances from specified trust funds to the Budget Stabilization Fund and the General Revenue Fund. If elected or re-elected, would you be in support of a bill similar to this if proposed in the 2021 legislative session? Why or why not? We're going to begin with Ms. Sienna Asta. You have 60 seconds to respond. Please wait for the timer before you begin your response.
Okay, thank you. I think the state budget is one of the biggest issues and hurdles that we face here. On top of that, we're now facing the coronavirus. And so we are definitely in uncharted territory. And we're still trying to figure out how the budget can accommodate and how the budget can work with the coronavirus pandemic that we find ourselves in now. I think that we need to have a special session scheduled as quickly as possible, in order to work through the available options in order to keep our state solvent, including expanding Medicaid and getting healthcare for people who are affected or impacted by COVID-19. That alone could help pump dollars into our healthcare systems. So no, I would not support pretty much anything that Governor DeSantis has proposed.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Asta. Next, we will have Mr. Thomas. You have 60 seconds. Please wait for the timer before you begin.
Okay. Yeah, I would support a law that will stop the rating of these particular budgets or the Sadowski Fund. More importantly, it's what would be the policies behind this particular Sadowski Fund, where if it's getting rated, that obviously means it's not getting used for what it was intended. In Palm Beach County, the wages are very low and home ownership is at an all-time high. And in addition to that, we don't have enough housing stock for our community. I believe that we have to figure out how we bring the cost of homes down. You can say bring wages up, but that would, take, businesses and governments raising the pay. And that always causes an issue with that. So yeah, I would support, policy and a law that will stop the rating of these funds.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas. Next, we will have Commissioner Hardy. Please wait for the timer and you will have 60 seconds. You may begin, Commissioner Hardy.
Okay, I don't see a timer, but I'll start. So yes, I support preventing the legislature from rating the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. But I do think that we should put in place a stronger protection than simply a statute. Obviously, the legislature has been rating the trust fund since 2003. It has done so through the legislative process and through the budget making process. And just as it's chosen to raid the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the leadership of the legislature can choose to repeal a law like that in the future. So I think we need something stronger. I think we need a constitutional amendment to protect the Affordable Housing Trust Fund here in the state of Florida. If you have a trust fund, you should be able to trust the legislature to fund it, but that hasn't been here, the case here in the state of Florida. And so I think we need a constitution to restrict the legislature from doing that. But in addition to that, I do think that we need to look at other ways that we can encourage the building of affordable housing. In particular, I think we need to work with local governments and encourage them to zone their residential land for housing that's economical to be built at affordable rents and at affordable prices.
Okay, Commissioner Hardy, your time is up. I gave you a few additional seconds because I know your clock started a little late. Thank you very much for your response. Representative Jett, I understand you've joined us. Did you hear the question?
Yes, I did. It's about affordable housing. Thank you so much for having me. And with
seconds to respond. So if you'll just wait for the timer to begin, you may now begin.
Thank you. Affordable housing is very important within District 88, from Delray Beach, where we worked on workforce housing and making sure those at the lowest income pool were at the table when it came to housing. There are also other issues, as some of us know about, CDBG dollars that go along to help not only to get people into homes, but to repair and do certain curbside appeal. All these things are important. And we know the American dream is if you don't own property, you're still literally floundering in the wind. We want our folks to own property. That's why this was the first year I was successful in making sure we did not sweep it. The money was there. We made sure that the money is there for those folks who need it the most. Unfortunately, the coronavirus affected our budget quite a bit, but this was the first year that the legislature did not sweep it. We want to go back to Tallahassee to make sure we continue fighting and make sure that every year, by the way, the only trust fund that never gets touched, guess which one that is? The NRA's trust fund. So we need to make sure if these trust funds are getting touched, then NRA needs to as well. Let's get more affordable housing.
Your time is up. Thank you very much for your response. I appreciate everyone's response. We're now going to go to question number 3. And before we do, please submit your questions for the candidates in the question and answer box in the Zoom room or in the Facebook comments section. When we finish with the third question, we will allow for questions from the audience. Question 3 will be addressed to Mr. Cedric Thomas first. Earlier this month, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to overturn a federal appeals court's decision that blocked some Florida felons' eligibility to participate in elections unless they pay court fines and fees, a major blow to efforts by those to restore voting rights to as many as 1.4 million people in Florida. What have you done, or if elected, what innovative strategies would you employ within your legislative bounds to fight this issue to ensure that all are able to vote in Florida elections? You will have 60 seconds to respond. We will begin with Representative Al Jaquette. Please wait for the timer before you begin your response. You may begin.
Thank you. And I'm so glad that this is the first question I get to answer, because I was truly a champion on this Amendment 4 issue. Not only did we advocate and campaign to make sure that we got this initiative on the ballot, but we made sure we got it passed. Now, the number of Floridians that voted for Amendment 4 surpassed any candidate, whether statewide or not, in the numbers that they received. So I was shocked that the following year, the Republicans went up there and passed a law that said you had to pay your fines, even though that wasn't in the language. I filed a bill along with Senator Bobby Powell, who, by the way, does represent parts of District 88. We filed that bill to repeal that language from the Republicans' language the prior year, to make sure that those folks who owed fees or fines through court were not penalized, and their right to vote was not limited based on the ability to pay. If you have money to pay, you can just pay whatever you owe and you get your right to vote right away. If you don't have the ability to pay, as a lot of residents within District 88, where I live, then it becomes a problem.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Thank you very much for your response. Commissioner Hardy, you're next. You have 60 seconds to respond. Please wait for the timer before you begin.
Thank you. Back in 2016, I spent a lot of time registering folks to vote in advance of the November general election. And I would go to the beach and, with a clipboard, and I would ask people if they're registered to vote. And not infrequently would I find someone who would say, well, my vote doesn't matter. And on one occasion, I was talking with someone who's African-American like me, saying that their vote didn't matter. And it was strange to me because we were standing on a beach that we would have been run off of 70 years ago. And this person was telling me that their vote didn't matter. And so, look, your vote matters. If it didn't, Republicans wouldn't be working so hard to steal it. And I would note that there's a difference between filing a piece of legislation and actually getting a piece of legislation passed. Look, the fact of the matter is that we need to work to amend this Constitution to enact basically what it was that voters intended. That means we're going to have to go back to the voters. And Representative Jaquette, during the legislative session, actually voted for a bill that would make it harder to get things like Amendment 4 on the ballot. So this is the kind of stuff that we don't need from a representative. We need someone who's going to work hard for our. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yep.
Okay, thank you so much for your response. Next up will be Ms. Sienna Asta. You will have 1 minute to respond. Please wait for the timer before you begin.
Thank you. So what we've got going on right now is the governor trying to appeal this Supreme Court decision. And the voters who vote in favor of amendments such as this, they're being ignored and they're being insulted by Governor DeSantis on this and other referendum type issues. Our governor needs to stop wasting time. He needs to stop wasting decreasing tax revenue dollars on futile lawsuits that go against the will of the majority of the voters. The way I see it, if someone has been convicted of a felonious crime and they've served their sentence, they are more than entitled to have their right to vote instated. It's a constitutional right. It's one of the best, the most important rights that we have as American citizens. And obviously the government agrees that it's such an important right that we have, because that's why they take it away if a felony type crime is committed or convicted of.
Thank you very much, Ms. Oster. We appreciate your response. And finally, we will have Mr. Thomas. You'll have 60 seconds to respond. Please wait for the timer before you begin. You may begin.
Okay, thank you. First, I think it's a travesty that this has happened. Basically, what was done was, even after the voters, approved Amendment 4, essentially a poll tax was also implemented by, saying that if the voters wanted you to have to pay all of your fees and fines before voting, they would have said that. Now, I do understand this, only a certain amount of words and that you can have, on an actual ballot. However, I think that it could have been a better job done at making sure that these type of loopholes won't go in there. What I would do to change that is fight, just continue to introduce and try to get bills passed so that we can undo what's been done. We do know that it's a Republican-led legislature, but that doesn't give us any excuse not to fight and not to try to make sure that the will of the people is enacted, because that is our job. Next, I would organize the individuals that are being affected.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Your time has expired. Thank you very much for your response. We are now going to move to the questions from the audience. So if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A. The first question that we received is as follows. Would you support a specific living wage amount across the state? We'll begin with Ms. Asta. You'll have 60 seconds to respond.
The short answer to that is yes. I would support a living wage across the state of Florida, specifically here in District 88. I think that we have a number of hardworking citizens, and they need to be rewarded with at least the right to eat and keep their lights on. So I think it's one of the most essential things that the state of Florida can provide at a minimum to our citizens here in Florida and also in our particular District 88. So yes, I would be in favor of that and would support that, as well as raising the minimum wage. I think it's been too low for too long, and people are having to work 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the rent and to take care of their children, and it's just not fair. So it's something that we really need to fix.
Thank you very much, Ms. Asta. Next, we will have Mr. Thomas. You will have 60 seconds to respond. Would you support a specific living wage amount across the state? Please wait for the timer before you begin. Okay, I'm not seeing the timer, Mr. Thomas, so why don't you go ahead and begin, and I'll try to time it on my phone. Go ahead.
No problem. I won't even need the whole minute. The answer to that is yes. I absolutely would. In addition to a living wage, the minimum wage would also need to be raised even above the $15 that it's being talked about. Now, is that going to be an easy thing to get done? No, but there are options and there are policies that can be enacted for that to get done. So yes, I will do both.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we'll have Commissioner Omari Hardy. You have 60 seconds to respond.
Should I wait until the timer?
We may be having some technical difficulties with the timer. I'm not seeing it. I'm gonna just track it on my phone.
Well, I'll be conscientious about my time here. I support raising the minimum wage here in the state of Florida. It's been too low for too long. And in addition to raising the minimum wage, we must also tie the minimum wage to inflation so that workers' wages go up as the cost of living goes up. And that's the problem we have with the minimum wage right now. It hasn't kept up with the cost of living because only the legislature can change the minimum wage. We just need to tie it to inflation. And this is an important conversation to have in the context of the affordable housing conversation, but also in the context of coronavirus. My first year in the classroom, I had a student who told me she was homeless, and it was true, she was homeless, but her mom worked 40 hours a week. So her mom was working at minimum wage, not able to afford the rent in Palm Beach County. So we have a homeless family here in the school district. In addition to that, we have Republican legislators, both in the state and in Congress, saying we don't need $600 a week benefits because that's paying someone more to be unemployed than it is to work. Well, the problem isn't with the unemployment benefit. It's the fact that working pays you less than $600 a week. That's the travesty, right? So we need to raise wages here in the state of Florida. It starts with the minimum wage. It continues also with strengthening labor unions here in the state of Florida.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hardy. We'll now go to Representative Jaquette. You'll have 60 seconds to respond. You may begin.
Thank you. And the prior two made sense. This last response, I was trying to find something concrete except just political points. I couldn't find anything. Here's the issue with minimum wage. Again, I'm a true champion of that issue because we filed, and not only filed, we pushed the campaign for raise the wage to a minimum of 15. I agree with Mr. Cedric Thomas. It should be above. My thing is, when my mother and father were raising me in Delray Beach, going to Atlantic High School with 5 children, my mother, neither my mom nor dad made $15 an hour. And what that did is it forced my father to work 2 jobs. But because my mother understood the importance of parents being at home, she worked only 1 to make sure that she was at home. No parent should have to work 2 or 3 jobs to take care of their kids, to put food on the table. Raise the wage is giving us a problem because businesses have stood against it. Big businesses stood against it because they think that's going to be too high of a cost for them. I say the cost is too high for our children to be in our communities with parents out working and they're left to be patrolled by law enforcement. I say the cost is too high if mom and dad cannot pay their light bill and cannot take care of it. Listen, we've passed a lot of legislation.
Okay, sir, I appreciate it. Your time has expired on that question. We're now going to have to move to closing statements, and you may want to include the remainder of your response in your closing. Each candidate will have 1 minute to complete their closing statement. We'll start with Commissioner Hardy. Please again, wait for the timer before you begin. You may now proceed.
Again, well, I'll wait for the timer.
Let's give us 1 moment. I believe we're getting
No
it
worries.
started. Okay, I don't see the timer, so I'm again going to just track you on my phone. You may now begin.
Thank you. Look, this is an important election. It's a primary election, but whoever wins this primary on August 18th will be the representative for District 88. And what we have had for the past 4 years is a representative who doesn't show up to work and who, when he does show up to work, votes with Republicans to restrict access to abortion, votes with Republicans to basically allow corporations to dodge taxes, votes with Republicans to defund our public schools. This is not the kind of representation that District 88 needs. District 88 is a district full of working class people, full of people who send their children to public schools, full of people who need access to health care. And we need a representative who's going to go up there and fight like hell to bring back good things for the people of District 88. And that's what I have done in Lake Worth. That's what I've done in a respectful way, obviously advocating for my students. And that's also what I intend to do as a representative in the legislature. I want to fight the good fight for the residents of District 88. And that's why I have the endorsement of every single elected official in District 88 who has chosen to make an endorsement at all in this race, in addition to the endorsements of every single labor union and Planned Parenthood and progressive groups like the Working Families Party and the Democratic Progressive Caucus of Florida. So I appreciate this opportunity. I appreciate the hard work that went into this, and I thank you. I look forward to serving in the legislature. Thank you.
Perfect timing. Thank you very much, Commissioner Hardy. We will now go to the next candidate, which is Ms. Asta. You will have 60 seconds to respond, and I'm going to run the timer on my phone beginning now.
Thank you. In closing, I want to actually rehash an issue why I ran. I joined this race later than everybody else. Everyone else had a year or more to campaign and get their name out there, get their campaign funds out there. I started in June. Why did I start? Because I was so moved by the George Floyd incident and the Black Lives Matter movement. I remember waking up that morning, scrolling through my Instagram, seeing all these black squares, and I thought, wow, that's moving. But what can I do that's more than posting on social media? And I looked up State House for District 88, and I figured, wow, that is perfect. I can help the people, and I can represent this district better than what they've been receiving for the past 4 years. I'm Sienna Asta, and I am running for House District 88. I'm a litigator. I've got experience in arguing, negotiating, and I will get the job done, and you will be able to reach me when you need me.
Thank you very much, Ms. Asta. We will next go to Mr. Cedric Thomas. Mr. Thomas, you'll have 60 seconds for your closing statement. You may begin. I believe we have the timer back going again, so just wait 1 moment, please, if you would. You may begin.
Thank you, and thank you for moderating it. You did a great job, Ms. Baker Barnes. I appreciate it. My name is Cedric Thomas. I'm not new to this. I'm actually true to it. What I've been able to do with the help of the residents of Riviera Beach, I want to be able to do with the help and the residents of District 88. I'm saying that I believe I bring a unique skill set to the state in order to bring those funds, bring those policies back that affect us directly. Endorsements are good. I've received some. Endorsements, are great if people don't know you. But what I'm asking you to do is look us up, find out what we've done, find out, can we work with a legislator or a team to be able to bring things home, right? I'm asking for your vote. I want your vote because I know that I'm the fighter that this district needs. I'm going to be in this district whether I win or not. I live in this district. I plan to always be in this district. My heart is in this district. So if you're fed up, sincere.
Mr. Thomas, your time has expired. Thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate it. I gave you a few extra seconds because you started a little bit after the timer, but thank you very much for your closing. All right, and our last closing tonight will be Representative Jaquette. You'll have 60 seconds. Please wait for the timer to begin. You may begin.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Barnes, and thank you to our timer and all of the candidates who are here this evening. I truly thank you for your public service. But we've heard a lot of things tonight, right? We're asking you to vote for us, and I'm asking you to re-elect Al Jaquette. There's a reason why certain frustrations have set in this district. And I understand. The frustration is we have not gotten enough soon enough. We're tired of being tired. And that's the truth. And with one of the candidates mentioning the reasons she got in this race, and we can understand the frustrations of what's going on right now. That's why we need proven leadership. I have put body cameras on police officers in Delray. I don't know who else in this race has. I have fought for things like raise the wage. I have named streets to make sure our young people have a sense of pride. I have worked on vocationals. I have advocated for a change of the Judicial Nominating Commission so we can have more Black judges. You hear one of my opponents from Lake Worth who has done nothing. Not one piece of law has he passed. He lies about his endorsements. Thank you, ma'am. And we ask you to re-elect Al Jaquette.
But your time has expired. Thank you very much for your closing argument. We appreciate all the candidates joining us tonight, and thank you very much for a lively discussion. You've informed us well. We are now going to move to the Senate races. Before we proceed, let me tell you a little bit about the Senate. The Florida Senate is the upper house of the Florida State Legislature. There are 40 members in the Senate. Each member represents an average of 470,033 residents. Florida senators serve on a 2-4-4 term system, which means that the terms are sometimes 2 years and sometimes 4 years, depending upon the proximity of the election to the legislative reapportionments that occur every 10 years after a federal census. The salary is $29,697 per year, plus per diem for subsistence and travel. I am now going to turn it back over to my co-moderator, Corey Smith, to begin the Senate races.
Thanks, Saya. We will now begin with the first group of candidates, which consists of Senate District 25. This district consists of northern cities in Palm Beach County, including Jupiter Island and cities in Martin and St. Lucie counties. For District 25, the Democratic candidates in attendance tonight are Corina Balderramos Robinson and Reynaldo Diaz. We will now start with the opening statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes. We will begin with Corina Balderramos Robinson.
Good evening, Palm Beach Voting Squad. Thank you so much for inviting us this evening. My name is Dr. Corina Balderramos Robinson, and I'm running to be your next senator in Florida Senate District 25. I left my hometown in South Dakota at the age of 17, straight out of high school to begin my service to our beloved nation. I followed in my father and brother's footsteps to serve in the United States Army. 25 years on active duty around the world, I was blessed to raise 3 sons who I proudly call my fire team. There's a dire need for bold and ethical leadership in our district. Through my time in the Army and serving on Capitol Hill as a legislative fellow, I saw firsthand that effective management and legislation can improve lives. And that's why I'm running in our district. We have to provide emergency relief and support during this unprecedented time of the pandemic. We have environmental pollution that's one of our biggest threats that face our district. And we have to preserve the Forever Land Conservation Program. Healthcare is our human right, and the Affordable Care Act is necessary in order to provide reasonable access to healthcare for everyone. Our children deserve the absolute best of education. As a product of the public school system, I believe that there must be educational equity. And to preserve our democracy, we must tackle internal, external threats to our voting system head on. And I will attack any threats to our capability to do that. And this campaign and these priorities are only about your support. It's time for your voice to be heard. Join my team today and vote for Karina on August 18th. It's time for leadership in our district actually worked for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will hear from Reynaldo Diaz. Please begin, sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm Reynaldo Diaz. I'm running for Senate District 25. I'm a Floridian. I'm a son to immigrants. I grew up in this area, and I have a really deep connection to District 25 and to the Gold and Treasure Coast. I spent many years working as a guide, showing people our environment, finding them wildlife to photograph, to film, whatever it was. And in that short lifespan of mine, I saw a huge degradation in our environment. That really inspired me to go back to school to Nova Southeastern University, where I got my law degree specifically so that I could become a better advocate on these issues. If there's one thing that I run on, it's to run against special interest. I run to represent the voter because on paper, per our Constitution, we still live with a representative government. At least, we want to still believe that. And no matter what the issue is, whether it is environment, whether it's education, whether it's gun control, whatever it is, the biggest hurdle, the biggest obstacle to getting the policy that we need 100% is always going to be special interest influence over our legislatures. I encountered that just through the years of working as a waterkeeper. There's only 13 of us in Florida, where we work hard to push to fight for our environment, to get the legislation and the policy that we need to better our state, which is going to protect our public health, our environment, and our economy. And in my work, through the years in my work with that, I have come through with so much frustration. It's always the legislature that drops the ball on what needs to be done. And because of that, I was inspired to run because with my law degree, with my experience, I know what needs to be done to fix most of our socioeconomic problems, environment included. And I want to cut the middleman out, and I want to be in Tallahassee so I can represent the voters, not the special interests. You're muted, Corey. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I had to unmute. Thank you, Mr. Diaz. We're now going to start the question section. The same question will be asked of each candidate. You will have 1 minute to respond. Please wait for the timer before you begin. Question 1 will be addressed to Reynaldo Diaz first. In the midst of the pandemic, the unemployment compensation process has been hotly criticized. What legislative actions, if any, do you believe are needed to improve the process in Florida? You have 60 seconds to respond.
Growing up where I am, less than affluent neighborhood, and I know a lot of people who are personally affected by this issue. To me, the common theme on this issue is it's a similar theme to a lot of things. It's this excuse that we don't have money to better our systems, to better the unemployment website. It's nothing but excuses to me. The Florida legislature literally only has one mandated job that they need to do, and that's to set our budget, right? They can set the budget and then they could go home after the part-time session. And what we end up seeing is so much government waste. So many examples, MCORs, 760 million. Somehow we have money for that, but we don't have money to improve our unemployment systems. We don't have money to improve our data collection when it comes to coronavirus, so we can make better decisions, which are going to help our community make informed decisions. And when it comes to the unemployment website, I wholeheartedly believe that it was 100% by design by Governor Scott to make it as frustrating and as inconvenient as possible.
Thank you. Ms. Robinson, you may now respond. 60 seconds.
Thank you so much. I would mention that when I worked on Capitol Hill, I was working in a bipartisan fashion, helping draft legislation and working with both parties to find common ground. And when I handled multi-million-dollar budgets at the Pentagon, where I focused on force protection, emergency response, it's not easy because you have to find a way to protect and serve the people. So within Florida, with our state legislature right now, it is amazing that we're not having a special session right now with regard to this pandemic. Soon enough, people will stop getting their unemployment checks. They will have their eviction notices served, and they may or may not be able to return to work. It's really a difficult situation where right now our children may have to return to school without the proper protections. So I just know that right now I can step into this position in Tallahassee with my emergency management expertise, public policy, and education. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2 will be addressed to Ms. Robinson first. The number of bills to expand or rein in gun rights number in the dozens, and most of them fail to pass every year. Florida senators are looking at proposals to expand the red flag law imposed after the 2018 shooting at a high school in Parkland. The rule allows for police agencies to file a request with a civil court citing factors that include mental illness and threats of harm by firearm made by a person to harm himself or another person. Some argue that this isn't enough. What is your position on the red flag law, and what other policies would you promote to address gun violence? You have 60 seconds to respond.
Thank you. I spent the preponderance of my military career as a military police officer who truly understands our right to protect ourselves. I do not believe in assault rifles being in the hands of anyone. And within Florida, we need to be very adamant about making sure that we tackle that capability for the red flag law to exist, because we don't want our children to be in schools where teachers have to be armed. We don't want anyone to be able to go to a gun show and buy a gun in which it will kill multiple people in seconds. And I just truly believe right now that our governor is not doing the very best he can to make sure that our communities are protected. Again, anything from body cameras to making sure people who are serving in the police forces are very closely followed to where they're being indiscriminate in how they're handling things. We need to pay better attention to what's going on with regard to the massive use of assault rifles and not making sure we have penalties or programs in place.
Robinson, your time has expired.
Thank you.
Mr. Diaz, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. So the red flag laws, they're a start. They're certainly a first step, and they're really just one cog in a big machine that needs to happen to protect our children in schools from shootings, to protect people on the streets, and to protect the community from police officers. Red flag laws, it's really like that'll cover one aspect of the situation. But what really we need to look at is we need to take a step back. We need to look at the whole situation, and we need to be creative and consider the ideas that are needed to solve our situation, solve those problems before they become problems, right? So we need to consider things like defunding the police instead of spending exorbitant amounts of money to fund police departments to arm themselves. We need to take that money. Like I said, we have the money, it's just being wasted, and we need to spend it on better community resources such as mental health programs, community centers, and the programs that are needed in certain communities that are going to keep kids and keep people from resorting to a life of crime.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. The next question will be addressed to you first. In light of the recent issues around law enforcement throughout the country, many citizens and social justice organizations feel that an independent citizen review board that monitors certain activities for law enforcement is a viable approach to addressing some of the racial inequities that currently exist. If elected, would you champion for the development of state legislation requiring all counties to establish citizen review boards? 60 seconds to respond.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm in kind of in a unique situation because as progressive as I am, I've also been through police academy. I have a lot of family in the industry. I'm very familiar with the police industry and some of the problems that it attracts. And, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in officer selection, for example, better training. We need higher standards on who we give that badge to make sure that they're not violent, that they're not toxic, and they're not going to be the type that's going to engage in negative police confrontation. In terms of the independent review board, that's such a obvious answer. Like, it's amazing to me that it doesn't exist already. Looking at, for example, the Officer Bill of Rights, which is state statute, and how that allows police officers to set up a quote oversight committee that is basically going to be consistent of other police officers is just unacceptable. The oversight needs to be independent. It needs to be citizens, and it needs to have that unbiased, brotherhood approach to looking at the police actions that are happening.
Thank you. Ms. Robinson, you may now respond. 60 seconds.
I would absolutely support the civilian review boards across Florida. It's easier said than done. Again, I spent the preponderance of my military career working with law enforcement organizations. And as a government civilian, I worked alongside local, state, and federal level law enforcement agencies to include the Joint Terrorism Task Force. We have to hold our officers to the highest degree possible of their performance and doing things ethically and morally. And if that's not happening across the state of Florida, we do need review boards to take a look at their behavior and to deal with the inconsistency and any violations of their authority.
Okay. Thank you. We're now going to move to audience questions. Are there any questions from the audience to the tech team? Okay, one additional question. Florida has suffered major economic losses as a result of COVID-19. It forced Governor DeSantis to cut nearly $1 billion from the state budget. If elected, what specific funding projects would you advocate for in 2021? Ms. Robinson, you get to go first.
Great question. I would make sure that because the number one issue that I support during this campaign is providing emergency relief and support, is that we look at this pandemic as something that is unprecedented, and we need to provide to the best extent possible support to the people who are trying to pay their rent, who they should not be evicted from their homes, and that they should also be able to provide a quality of life for their family. Keep the testing stations open, make sure that our hospitals are not overcrowded, and not return our children to school earlier than we need to. And to keep the stimulus checks coming, especially to help those small businesses, and to make sure we have a quality of life for years to come. There's so many other things at stake, but we need to look at the issue head on that we're dealing with right now.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz, your response, 60 seconds.
Sure. Similarly, we just went through a hurricane, or at least almost went through one. And every time we go through it, one of the big topics of conversation, and even before hurricane season, is preparedness. We got to have a plan for a potential disaster. And it was pretty clear very quickly that Florida did not have a plan for a pandemic of this sort. And it really cost us, and it's still costing us. So that is definitely a good start. You know, we need to have an emergency plan. We need to be prepared. We need to have those stockpiles going so that we can address the situation when it comes up. And then in addition to that, you know, we need to also look at how we monitor these situations as they come up. It's really clear that Florida has really kept the thumb on the scale when it comes to data and testing. As a water keeper, I have developed multiple water sampling programs, for example. And when it comes to science, you know, we like to say that science is unbiased, and that's very true, except it's also very easy for state agencies to kind of skew their science to fit their narrative. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing. And I'm very much prepared to go against that.
Thank you both for your answers.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to have closing statements from each of you. You have 1 minute each. We're going to start with Mr. Diaz. Please proceed.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. And, you know, thank you everyone who's listening in on this call, because really the key importance to every voter is, one, we need to have choice, but we also need to have informed voters. So for people to participate, to ask questions, to listen, this is such a critical step in every election. And with that, you know, I hope everyone sees that the most important thing for somebody to hold office, like I said, I'm running against special interests. I'm totally grassroots. I have built my career representing the public interest and representing the community. And I hope everyone sees that. You can look me up. I've been around for years. The work that I do, whether it's my environmental work, whether it's the food bank work, whether it's gleaning the agriculture fields, you know, all that community service work has been just at the core of my personality and my history growing up here. It's not a photo opportunity for me. And I hope everyone sees that, and they see that if I send me to Tallahassee, and I will continue that theme of representing the people, not the special interest.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. Ms. Robinson, you have a minute.
Thank you. I'm not new to politics. I started my research in my endeavor in 2014 as a fellow attending Georgetown University. I ran for Congress and did very well in a very heavy red district because I am a nation first candidate. I can work across party lines. And I've been very active with the League of Women Voters, which is a nonpartisan organization. And I have served the Florida Democrats with great pride in being one of the greatest field organizers in 2018. I am running in this race because we have a senator who has been in office 20 years, and she is resting on her laurels and her war chest. I am capable of doing this job, and I'm seeking your vote on August 18th. Please go to my website. I put it in the chat room. I would welcome to earn your vote, and know that in Tallahassee, I will do a fabulous job in the best interest of Senate District 25. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. I'm now going to turn it over to Saya for District 29.
All right, I've started my video. Good afternoon, everyone again. We will now begin with the last group of candidates, which will consist of candidates for Senate District 29. This district consists of parts of Broward and Palm Beach counties. The Palm Beach County cities include parts of Wellington, Belglade, South Bay, Boca Raton, Western Boynton Beach, Delray Beach, and Boca Raton. For District 29, the Democratic candidates in attendance tonight are Tina Polsky and Irving Irv Schlossberg. We will now start with the opening statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes. We will begin with Tina Polsky. Please wait for the timer to begin your opening statement.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight. I wanted to introduce myself. I am Tina Polsky. I'm currently the state representative for District 81, House District 81, and I am a candidate for State Senate District 29. Almost the entire part of my House District 81 is in Senate District 29. I represent the areas of the Western communities, including the Glades. I'm very proud to represent this community where I have focused so much of my efforts on appropriations, helping the community, and doing whatever we can to keep the spotlight on this group because they have been forgotten for a very long time. And I was just on a call this morning about economic development. It is such a huge issue. And I've been very involved in trying to get more industry and business to the Glades area. I have focused my efforts on public school funding, on gun safety reform, on teacher pay raises, on voter access, such as Amendment 4 issues. And I would love the opportunity to continue doing that in the Senate. I am a mom to 2 teenagers. I am married for 24 years. I'm a lawyer, but I practice as a mediator, and I try to resolve cases rather than litigate them. I take my mediation talents, my negotiating and compromising skills with me to work across the aisle, to be able to get things done, get bills passed, and to get appropriations through. Even through the vetoes, I got appropriations through for the Glades. Not only that, but constituent services is paramount to me. It is probably more important than anything else that we do, especially during this pandemic. We have been there working with our constituents day in and night to help them with unemployment and to help them with food and housing and whatever issues they have. And I would love your support for Senate District 29.
Thank you very much, Ms. Polsky. We will now have Mr. Irv Schlossberg who present his opening statement. You have 2 minutes. Please wait for the timer before you begin. You may begin.
Thank you. The reason I got into politics is my daughter died in a car crash, a violent car crash. And, you just can't believe something like this could happen. It did. And I went to the Starbucks, I went to the gym, and I went to the cemetery, and I cried every day for 2 years. And I woke up one day and I said, you know what? I could feel sorry for myself the rest of my life, or I could change the world. And that's exactly what I did, is I changed the world. And how did I change the world? Against all odds, I got elected, beat an incumbent, and went to Tallahassee. The seatbelt law, I convinced the legislature to pass the Dory Schlossberg Katie Marchetti seatbelt law. I convinced the legislature, and with the help of my daughter, about the distracted driving law. I took 1 million seniors off the road. How? If you can't see, you can't drive. Vision testing for 80-year-old seniors. So a lot of them couldn't see. So, and the list goes on and on, basically. I saved tens of thousands of lives. Rather than fight for this and fight for that and fight for the other thing, I did it. And I have the experience. I served on every single budget committee in Tallahassee. I'm an expert on the budget. And then all of a sudden along comes one day, Tina Polsky with these terrible ads about Irv is a dangerous Republican. He has guns in school, votes for guns, and votes for guns in school, guns at nightclub, guns. You know what? I don't even own a gun. This is totally ridiculous. However, her campaign is totally about Irv and guns. It's totally ridiculous. However, I have to take this seriously. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Public safety is my #1 priority. I'm ready to go fight the COVID epidemic and fight for our unemployment system not to be broken again, and just go fight for the district, for education. We need money for education because of the fact we need money to help the teachers with distance learning. They're just not ready to go back to school yet.
Mr. Schlossberg, your time has expired, but thank you very much for your opening statement. We are now going to be with the questions. The first question will be addressed to you, Mr. Schlossberg, first, and it is as follows. Governor DeSantis allocated $900 million to recruit and retain classroom teachers in his budget blueprint, including raising the minimum starting salary to $47,500 for teachers. He also wants to reform the teacher bonus programs. Not everyone is happy with this. Educators point out that boosting the starting salaries does nothing for teachers already in the classrooms, and in some cases, a new teacher would be making more money than an already established teacher. If elected, what would you do to address this issue? Mr. Schlossberg, you have 60 seconds to respond.
Well, politicians, always some politicians, like the governor, always wants to put the best foot forward. And, you know, they just don't tell you what's inside the bill. And this is a perfect example of what's inside the bill. What he wants you to believe is that this is going to be good for all Floridian teachers. And you know what? It's not. On the other hand, you know, he did something. And from my, you know, standpoint here, something is better than nothing. The whole thing is a trick, though. And he should have been more transparent and made everybody understand what's in the budget and what's not in the budget. And this really isn't that fair for veteran teachers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schlossberg, for your response. Ms. Polsky, you may now respond. You have 60 seconds to respond. Please wait for the timer before you begin.
Sure, let me
may
actually
begin.
answer the question that was asked. The veteran teachers are not getting the raises, especially because of the budget cuts that the individual school districts now have to deal with. I proposed a teacher raise bill, my very first bill that I ever did 2 years ago when I became a state representative. It is near and dear to my heart. The teacher unions have endorsed me both in Broward and in Palm Beach because of how I have fought for public school funding and for teacher raises. I will propose a bill to raise veteran teachers' salaries. It's not just enough to say he didn't do it. You have to take proactive steps, and that's what I will do. That's what I have done. That's what I will do. So we need a bill in place to give veteran teachers the same kind of raises that new teachers got so that it is a fair system. And we need to make sure that public schools continue to be funded at the highest levels possible, which is going to be a huge challenge coming up with the budget deficits that we will be facing next session when we get back in March. So we need someone proactive on this issue.
Thank you very much, Ms. Polsky, for your response. We will now go to question number 2. And this question will be addressed to Ms. Polsky first. Constant reports of violence and prisoner abuse in the state's prisons is leading to calls for changes within the correctional system. The state's corrections chief is also calling for more money to deal with staffing issues, including high turnover and long hours. He called the current system unsustainable. The governor's budget proposes $89.7 million, which would be used for a retention pay plan and a pilot project to transition correctional officers to a shorter work schedule. It also includes money to make infrastructure repairs, provide more security equipment, and expand career and education programs. The budget also includes $11.9 million to begin building a mental health hospital at Lake Correctional Institution. What specific policies would you promote to address this issue? You have 60 seconds to respond.
Thank you. I was just waiting for the timer. I was very happy to vote for the criminal justice reform bill that we did 2 years ago, which really made a difference in some of the prison terms and reducing sentences, which goes a long way towards helping out in the prisons. I was very pleased to vote for prison reform bills with respect to incarcerated women, pregnant women, and hygiene products that they need. These are small things that people don't really think about that are so important to prisoners. We get issues all the time in our office about people complaining about the conditions. There's no air conditioning, there isn't enough training. So we need to continue to focus on that. The mental health is very important, as you said. Many people are put into prisons because of mental health issues and not because of violence issues. So we need to continue funding it. Again, this is going to be very difficult with the budget coming up that we have, but I agree that all of those things need to be done, and we need to always keep a focus on prison reform and better salaries and retention programs for our prison officers.
Thank you very much, Ms. Polsky. Mr. Schlossberg, you may now respond. You have 60 seconds to respond. Please wait for the timer before you begin. You may begin.
Thank you. It's typical Tina. She's like talking about supermarket of issues. I'll fight for this, and I'll fight for that, and I'll fight for this, and I'll fight for that. That's not how you get things done. How you get things done is you focus. And what I would focus on is making sure that I was on the healthcare appropriations committee so that the money can be there for mental illness. You know, that's a big problem. If you think you're just going to throw people in jail and you're not going to have any plan to like improve their life or make them better, you can't throw mentally ill people in jail and think that the situation's going to get better. And so I am an expert on the budget. I've been on every single budget committee, and I would be focusing on mental health financing.
Mr. Schlossberg, I gave you a few more seconds, but your time has expired on that question, so you may want to incorporate it in your closing at the end if you want to finish up. We're going to go on to question number 3. And question number 3, Mr. Schlossberg, is going to be addressed to you first. Colorado is the first state to abolish qualified immunity when a law enforcement officer violates someone's constitutional rights, such as excessive force and police brutality cases. In Colorado, there is no statutory minimum or cap on damages, liability, attorney's fees, and costs for certain claims. Finally, if the law enforcement officer cannot pay, then his employer or insurance company is responsible for the full amount of the judgment or settlement. What is your position on whether qualified immunity should be abolished in Florida in cases where law enforcement officers have been found to use excessive force or unlawfully kill individuals? You have 60 seconds, Mr. Schlossberg, to respond.
Sure. We know it's not equitable. You know, law enforcement can't just do whatever they want to do and think they could get away with anything they want to be. And there has to be consequences. And the consequences have to be severe. They can't just be, oh, we're going to let these people off and we're going to let them go do this and that and the other thing. You know, once it's proven that they're in the wrong, then they have to pay, or their employer has to pay. They have to be made examples of.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schlossberg, for your response. We will now move to Ms. Polsky, and you will have 60 seconds to respond. Please wait for this.
Thank you. I would be in favor of removing qualified immunity. I think if a court of law found that a police officer violated someone's constitutional rights, then it's the same as if another individual had equally violated their rights, and they should be subject to whatever penalties a court could bring or whatever civil penalties an individual wanted to bring. I don't think as a police officer you should be immune from bad behavior, from racist behavior, from illegal behavior, and we've all seen it, unfortunately, way too often. So we have a lot of work to do. Some of the things you mentioned, I think would be a very hard thing to pass in Florida, just because of the way that the Republicans have postured themselves with respect to lawsuits, as you know, as a lawyer, and the areas that you practice in, that they don't like unlimited fees. And so this would be a huge challenge, but I would be in favor of it myself.
Thank you very much, Ms. Polsky. We're now going to take any questions from the audience. So I'm asking that the moderators let me know. And I do not see any questions in the chat. Let me just check and see if we've received any. Okay, I'm not seeing any yet. So I will ask a question, and we'll start this question with Mr. Schlossberg. And the question is as follows. What do you believe is the most important challenge facing our state at the present time? And what is your plan to address the challenge? Mr. Schlossberg, you have 60 seconds to respond.
It's the COVID epidemic. I mean, thank you. It's the COVID epidemic, and we need a formal state testing and some kind of a law that says in 4 hours or less, if you need a test, you get a test. And my daughter took a test. She got the results in 8 days, and we need the results in 24 hours. And we need testing sites within 30 minutes of everyone's house. I mean, what good is it if you don't get the tests back immediately? What good is our contact tracing? We're just throwing our money out the window. So I feel that the COVID testing is one of the main issues, and then it's the unemployment issue. The computers are all broken. These are Rick Scott's failed plans, and then it's education funding. And so we've got a real problem in Florida, and I feel that I can do something about it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schlossberg. Ms. Polsky, you have 60 seconds to respond.
Thank you. We are facing unprecedented times right now. In my office, we are dealing with hundreds of constituents who can't get their unemployment, or it's taken so long to get it. And now people are facing the situation where the $600 from the federal government is not coming because they can't come to resolution in Washington. So what I would propose to do is to raise the amount of money. $275 per week is one of the lowest in the country, and we are not one of the cheapest places to live. It doesn't make any sense. The system was designed to fail. We need more human beings to work at DEO who understand the process and who will work with the computerized system, because we know the computerized system doesn't work. So those are two policies that I will propose if I become the senator back in Tallahassee, which we don't meet again until March. So that's kind of the problem with setting up legislation, because we are not going to be there until March. So we need to continue fighting and pushing the governor to do the right thing by his own order, because he is not allowing the legislators to come back for a special session as I have called for.
All right, I let you both go over just a little bit on that last question. We'll now have closing statements of 1 minute each per candidate. We will start with Mr. Schlossberg. Please proceed.
Thank you. I know how to get things done. I'm a legislative machine whose legislation has saved tens of thousands of lives. My laws are all grand slam home runs. I understand the budget. I was on all the budget committees. You want a legislative machine who knows how to get things done and bring home money, or someone who lies her way into getting the job, who has accomplished next to nothing? Times are tough. We're scared. We need someone like me who's battle tested and already delivered results. Compare myself to Tina. She knows there was no way to beat my record. So what does she do? She lies. She fills up people's mailboxes, including mine, with stories of me being a dangerous Republican and being a friend of the NRA. The truth is, I was a Republican 23 years ago. She made me a TV star with a Republican hat, guns next to me. In the Jewish language, there's a word for this. It's called a shanda. It means she's a disgrace to our community. I worked hard for the community for 20 years in the legislature as chairman of Dory Saves Lives. No one knew Tina 3 weeks ago. She's putting in hundreds of thousands of dollars into people's mail. But why did she lie? Because she has accomplished next to nothing. She even has more nonsense by saying the TV stations make determinations on ads. They don't make the determinations.
Time has expired. Thank you very much for your closing argument. Ms. Polsky, you may now present your closing. You have 60 seconds. Please wait for the timer to begin.
Thank you. Thank you so much for hosting this. It's really important that people are informed about your choices for a state senate. State senate is a very important role. There are only 40 state senators, and you want the kind of person who is open to hearing you, who is accessible, who works really hard at constituent services, and is the kind of person the advocacy groups chooses to be their representative. All the unions, all the teachers, the Sun Sentinel, the Palm Beach Post have all examined our records and decided that I am the one who can get things done in Tallahassee. They've compared our records and they have chosen me. I have so many endorsements of elected officials because they've worked with me and they know that I am intelligent, hardworking, reasonable, and I will be able to get things done. I have gotten legislation done. I have fought for the Democratic caucus. We are in the minority. We must stick together. I will never be picked off by the Republicans for my own sake. I will stick together and fight for our values in Tallahassee. I can promise you that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Polsky and Mr. Schlossberg, for joining us tonight. Thank you, candidates. Before I turn it over to Corey Smith for final remarks, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. It's critically important that we not only vote, but that we inform voters. So we appreciate all of the candidates that took the time to come join us tonight and answer our questions and hear your platforms. I am now going to turn it over to Corey Smith for final remarks.
Thank you, Saya, and thank you to all the candidates who attended tonight. And another special thanks to the co-moderator of this, Saya Baker Barnes, who thought it not robbery to interrupt her vacation to take time to engage in this public service. As we close the fourth, when we all vote for them, I want to remind everyone that early voting has already begun. Also, you have until August 8th to request your mail-in ballot. That's also known as absentee ballots. I want to encourage everybody again to get out and vote. People have died for the right to vote. I want to remind everybody that it's 2020, meaning that women just got the right to vote just 100 years ago. We encourage you to watch the last primary election, When We All Vote campaign forum on Thursday, which consists of the candidates for the United States House of Representatives relevant to Palm Beach County. I would also add in another emphasis on voting, because again, and I pause because, you know, remember John Lewis, who just passed away. And he was a member of the House of Representatives, not from our district, but the man almost died so many years ago on a bridge fighting for the right to vote. The least we can do is honor his memory and vote. So thank you all. Thank you to the candidates for such a lively and entertaining discussion. And thank you to When We All Vote campaign. We'll see you on Thursday.